Hello, my name is Aiden Uttinger, and I am the founder of the world's greatest experiment, a dynamic new nonprofit that is setting out to use love to transform the way we look at business and how we deal with poverty and many other issues that are facing humanity today, from mental health to all sorts of things. In my episode of the Business Growth Architect Show, I'll be discussing exactly how we're implementing this by building and converting impoverished communities in some of the world's hardest hit communities into thriving and abundant love farms, exporting and generating love to send out all around the world to businesses and individuals and causes who need it. So tune in to this episode if you'd like to find out more about how we're doing it and how you can be involved.
And hello, fabulous person. Beate Gillette here. I am the host of the Business Growth Architect Show, and I want to welcome you to today's episode where we discuss how to navigate strategy and spirituality to achieve time and financial freedom. Truly successful people have learned how to master both, a clear intention and a strategy to execute that in a spiritual practice that will help them to stay in alignment and on purpose. Please enjoy the show and listen to what our guest today has to say about this very topic.
Welcome back, Beate Gillette, the Growth Architect, and today I'm going to take you to the world's greatest experiment. And what that means and what that is here to answer Aidan Uttinger, and I am excited to have you on the show, and it's going to be something that's going to be very unusual, something tells me. Welcome to the show, Aidan.
Thank you for having me.
So for somebody who has no idea who you are or what the world's greatest experiment is, which I would assume is probably most everybody listening, why don't we dive in a little bit and tell them, who are you, what do you do, and what do you solve for your clients?
Well, I am originally from New Zealand, but I spent a little bit of time when I was younger I ran away from home, and I ended up finding myself in the Philippines, where I ended up being an illegal alien and taken in by a Filipino family. And it sort of led me on this journey to create the world's greatest experiment, where I am setting out to prove the power of love in the form of meditation, energy, and trying to show the world how we can harness it to effectively be a currency in the future.
So I have to for somebody who does spirituality and strategy combined, even I have to do a double take when I talk to you. How can you or anybody take meditation sort of as a strategic business model? Tell us how that works, because that is very unusual.
We're a nonprofit organization, and when it comes to organizations that are trying to do something to solve some of these problems that are plaguing the planet, we have to start to take a more entrepreneurial mindset, something that's thinking a little bit outside the box, something that can perhaps grow exponentially faster than the problem. I feel like the current model doesn't work. It's a Band-Aid at best. So I think it's important to understand that. So when it comes to how we can utilize meditation as a model, well, what I've been fascinated with is the emerging science that's showing the power of love and meditation through people like Dr. Joe Dispenza, scientists like Dr. Emoto, who studied the effects of energy on water. I've been fascinated by seeing how it's actually been proven time and time again how energy can affect almost everything that's alive. It can heal bodies, change the structure of water, make plants and trees grow faster. But it feels like something that we haven't really tapped into it yet as humanity. We haven't learned how to harness the power of it. I feel like we're starting to get there, and some of the science is definitely starting to lead us in that direction, where we can see that there's really something here. It's no longer really in the woo-woo category. It's something that's an exciting area to look into. And so what we wanted to do was see if we could figure out a way to measure and harness this collective energy from around the planet in a way that can benefit humanity in numerous ways, numerous touch points throughout this whole process.
So there's no way that you just woke up one day and said, love is everything, and I'm going to step into love, and I'm going to see how I can use love to build a business model. There's got to be a backstory. You got to tell us.
Yeah, it's definitely been a journey. It's hard to pinpoint exactly when I realized that it was love, but I guess I've always been very heart-led, and things that haven't necessarily made sense to some people have just felt right to me. And an example of that is when I ran away at a young age. I ended up needing to do a 180 in my life, and I was only in my teens. I spun a globe, my finger on it, landed on the Philippines, and literally bought a ticket to go there. And I ended up being an illegal alien in the community there, and sort of got taken in by a Filipino family and had this whole adventure. It's really the event, when I look back at it, that's where this whole idea was born out of. I remember one day sitting in the backyard with my Filipino father, and I asked him how I could ever repay him for saving my life. And he told me that when I'm in a position to pay it forward, to consider the debt repaid. And it was such a simple and beautiful request, but it really struck me hard. And I really remember thinking, so amazing that this guy he doesn't want anything from me. He wants me to just pay it forward to somebody else that he may never even see who that person is. And I just made a promise to myself. That was over 20 years ago. It was such a poignant moment that I remember making a promise to myself I was going to find a way to pay that love and kindness forward to as many people as possible in a way that would make them really proud, and I guess realize that whatever I was creating in the world was really the fruits of the seed that they planted with me of love, right? So that's really been the motivation for it. And about 5 years ago, I guess you would call it my spiritual awakening, or certainly the start of it. And I had this sort of realization that what they'd done for me was they gave me a touch point of love at a moment when I didn't really feel like I had one. And I knew the gravity of that, like how much that had changed the whole course of my life. And it sort of struck me that there's a lot of people out there who have moments in their life where they really need that touch point of love, and they just don't have access to it. And the very nature of energy, and how, if you're vibrating on a high level, often you're disconnected from people on a lower level, and vice versa. The people that are really in need of love, often the most disconnected. And I felt like we needed to do something to see if we could sort of build a bridge that would allow people who needed love to connect with the abundance of it that's out there.
I love that. A friend of mine who also is in the podcasting world, he told me that he had felt that he was very judgmental about his child's sexual orientation. And then one day he just stepped into it and said, okay, fine, I'm going to go to the Pride Fest. And he made himself a T-shirt, and he and his wife went, and he says, dad hugs, free dad hugs. He came back a changed man. He said that it was the most moving experience he's ever had, just saying, free dad hugs. How many people, especially in communities that are oftentimes under scrutiny, haven't had a hug from their dad in years, and for having been judged. So he came back and he says, I cannot even imagine. He says it's almost selfish on what he got out of it versus, what he gave in relationship to what he received. So what you're talking about reminds me a little bit of that. Is this sort of the concept that you are sharing?
Yeah, I think there's in all the great spiritual teachings, there's all the message of love and the message of giving freely, and the notion that it will come back around full circle. And I love that concept because I know it to be true just in my heart. But I feel like for the first time, we actually have the ability with technology to measure this stuff. And like, what if we could show this working in a kind of measurable, tangible way that could help people have experiences like that on a daily basis? And I found that really exciting.
And so one day you just woke up with this business model and it had magically come to you, and then you said, I'm going to build this world's greatest experiment.
Yeah, it sort of evolved. Initially, the idea was, let's build a giant invisible pipeline of love that stretches all around the world and teach people anywhere who are in need of love how to tap into it and turn the faucet on and just take the love that they need in that moment. And then when they have an abundance of it, to fire it back out into the system for somebody else. That was the sort of overarching premise in the beginning.
All right. So you got me at the edge of my seat. Now you must tell me the business model on how do I I don't want to say monetize love. That already feels wrong. But how do I build a business model around love? How does it work?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think a lot of the conditioning we have about whether it's from our music, you can't buy me love, or you talk about love being something that has to be free. And all, it's interesting because I found the more that we dove into it, the more we realized that some of that might not actually be as true as we first thought, because love can be, if you're starving in a third world community and you have kids to look after, love could be money to put food on the table, or it could be medicine for your child, or a roof over your head. So it really depends, and you can't really make a blanket statement that is true for everybody. You have to look at each individual situation and say, well, where is the lack of love in that person's life? And then figure out if there's a way to correct that balance. If there's somewhere else in the world that maybe has some of the love that they would need, which could be money or food, but they need some of that emotional love and some of that human connection, or knowing that someone's thinking about them, caring for them, and trying to build a model that could sort of help find where the imbalances are and link the people up through love to give everybody what they need. And so that's essentially what we're doing. So once I read an article recently that's an official statistic that there are now more people that have access to cell phones, smartphones, and internet than clean water and basic sanitation and food and sustenance and medical. And it just blew me away. But it struck me that now we're at a point where if we would utilize technology to link these people who are really desperately in need and don't have opportunity, if we could link them with people, businesses, products and services around the world, causes that wanted to be recipients of love in the form of meditations that are focused, centering these people out, that could be a really great way to restore some of this balance. So people that join our experiments, or businesses that join our experiments, can pay a monthly contribution to the nonprofit. So it works just like a regular nonprofit. The money that you're giving goes to people that need it the most in a very transparent way that gives you the ability to see exactly what's going on. But the real difference with the model is the idea and the possibility that perhaps now, as a donor, you're helping change these people's lives, but you're actually getting something back. And so the experiment part of it is, we don't know, is that going to shift the needle and make your company more successful? Is it going to make your life more enjoyable? Are you going to be happier or healthier? We don't really know. The science sort of suggests it will, but at the very least, it's just a more exciting and dynamic way of giving and making an impact. And it has that little chance of perhaps being this thing that we discover that really shifts the needle and changes how people live their lives. And the best part of that is if that happens, the more people that want to receive love, the more people we're lifting out of poverty. And at the same time, the model's addressing these people in poverty. It's addressing their inner world, which is something that's often neglected. So they're so worried about making money to provide for their basic necessities.
Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Yes,
exactly.
They're still at the ground floor. Yes, go ahead. Tell me about that. Because I want to understand how this part of the model really works. Because when we talk about somebody who has housing insecurity, food insecurity, we really can't talk about high-flying concepts of spiritual development and other things. We kind of got to get them to eat and sleep somewhere safe first before we can elevate them to the next concept. How does this connect with this other part? So companies that feel called to give love, to be a loved company, I'm sure there's recommendations and certain levels and accolades that come with that. But what's it look like on the other side?
So I guess you're right in terms of it's a lot to introduce to these people, all these concepts. But if you simplify it right down, what I've noticed in spending my time in these places, that they have an abundance of love, and it's not foreign for them to, like, to give an example, when I first went and spoke to our first communities that were potentially going to be farming love, I had to get a feel if they're going to think this is ridiculous. Because obviously a lot of people out there, this is sort of a bit out of the box of where they'd normally be. But the interesting thing is I never had one person in any of the 3 communities that we went to do our market research prior to this, never had one person question what this love could do. In fact, I had so many people tell me, oh yeah, we've seen what's happening out there in the world. It seems like you guys really need a lot of love. Like, this makes sense. Like, great, we all know how to do this because...
Are you saying that they almost feel sorry for us so we have so little of what they have an abundance of, and they go like, I can spare a couple of meditation prayers for you guys. It's all right.
It blew my mind, but yes, like they literally are they seem very well aware. They definitely understand there's an imbalance of the money, and they feel like they really need that, but they're very well aware, and at least in the cases of the places that I went, which was predominantly in Nepal and in the Philippines, they were very well aware, and they didn't question whether this would work. They were like, oh yeah, that makes total sense. Like, it's about time someone did this kind of thing.
Oh, it's about time somebody came and asked us to help you guys out.
Well, it's kind of the energy we got. Right? They're obviously excited because it sounded a little bit too good to be true. Like, you could convert this love that you have for your family and wanting to provide for them and look after your community. You could convert that into things that they don't have access to, like clean water and medication and food. And I mean, it sounds too good to be true to them, but the basic concept of it, of why we're doing it, because there's a lack of love out there and they have a lot to give, that's the part that they didn't question at all.
All right, so now here's me with money, here's them with an abundance of love. So how do we connect the both of them for the mutual benefit and greater good for the world and Pachamama and Tierra Madre and Mother Earth?
Yeah, so it's essentially, whenever somebody joins our experiment as an individual or as a business, those are the two categories we have at the moment, they go into a group of the people that are in our experiment. Their monthly contribution goes out to the farmers, and through our technology platform that we've built, we connect, we measure and track all the love that's being sent by the people in our love farms, who are essentially just people lifted out of poverty, given an opportunity to provide for their families through sending love or meditation. Everyone's donation for being part of the experiment and getting to be the first humans or businesses in the world to experience what happens when you receive a massive amount of love, they get meditated on by the community. And every time a love meditation is completed, it's logged on the app, and the love farmer in the community gets a love credit, which has an immediate cash value for them in their community. They can exchange it through the phone application at any vendor in the community for anything that they might need. So it essentially, what it does is it allows them to turn their love into food or gas, or paying their electric, or putting clean water for their kids to drink, or putting their kid to school. It allows them to literally convert their love into that immediately.
That's amazing. And so you have communities that are tied into this, and then you have giving communities on the other side. So what's in it for the giver? Like, why would a company want to participate in this? What's the strategy behind it? Because, I mean, let's just face it, if I were to go to a Chevron or a large company and I say, hey, do you guys want to add some love into your product and service offering? They'll look at me like I'm nuts. So talk to me, what is it that you see emerge in the business aspect of things that made you know that this is a viable option, a business model?
Well, look, there are countless experiments that show, like, for example, in a food business, let's say you're talking about a farmer, there are so many studies and so many things that have been replicated over and over again, where they show plants growing significantly faster, healthier, more abundantly, just by receiving love from people walking past. It's been replicated so many times. So just using that simple idea of that, given that everybody that works in the company is a living being, if the person's dealing in any way with food or water, which are things that these studies have been linked to and replicated time after time, it makes sense to me that at some point, we don't understand necessarily how it works right now, but we know it works in some degree. And I feel like there is a very high probability that as we become more conscious, as we become more aware, as science catches up with spirituality, we actually start to understand the power of ingesting food and water and, having love streaming to our companies and our brands, etc., in a genuine way that's helping the world. We actually start to understand the power of that. And so whilst we might be a little bit ahead of the curve with it, I think someone's got to be the first to try these sorts of things. If we can prove that a business that streams love grows X% faster than a comparative business that doesn't have love, perhaps we can create more demand for love out there by bringing the data to the table. And every time everybody wins. The consumer wins because there's more love in what they're consuming. The company wins because they're growing, because they've got love-infused product services. The planet as a whole wins because we're lifting the people that need it most out of poverty. There's no loser in it. If you really look at love as a currency and you make sure that everyone who touches it is getting the love that they need, it's the kind of thing where there's no winner and loser. It's kind of like everybody that touches that ecosystem wins. And that's what we want to try, and that's the goal, is to try and show that this works beyond a doubt in a way that can be proven for people that want to see the numbers and see the data and perhaps have a little less faith than some of us, so that we can create a new norm for it. I mean, I would like to believe that the future is a place where we demand, just like we demand our food to be organic or pesticide free now, or whatever it is. Why not have love in it? Especially if that love came from helping people look after their families who were in a far less fortunate situation than we were.
I have a question that kind of comes up that might be a little provocative, but how did you even like think about building a business model around something like this? Do you feel that this is the new business model of the future? And there's no way you've done this by yourself. There is one source involved here. There have to be downloads. So I'll ask you just to give me a little bit more background on that, because one of the reasons I wanted you on the show is because this doesn't even feel fully flushed out, which is so contradictory to what I normally do. But I thought it was important to show that there is also a spiritual aspect on how to design a strategic model that includes spirituality and allow it to unfold. I mean, are you like breaking out in cold sweats every 2 weeks and you go like, how the heck am I going to make the numbers work? Like, tell us about this part.
Well, to be honest, I mean, it's so much, there's so much faith involved. And just to give a little bit more background as to why perhaps I've kept at this when it does at times feel like it's 20 years too early. I had an accident. Obviously, you know the whole backstory of going to the Philippines and all that. So I already had this idea of wanting to work with something like this that would make an impact and make the world a better place. But about 3.5 years ago, I was living in Bali and had an accident where I fell from the second story of my villa onto a concrete floor. And I split my head open and I was alone, and I had a full out-of-body experience where I crossed over. And when I had that, it was like nothing I'd ever experienced before. I had conversations on the other side, and I was so passionate about this love project that on the other side, that was all I was there for. When I realized I was there, I was just telling them why I was doing what I was doing. And like, I got the confirmation from them, this is what I was supposed to be doing. My dad was a pastor, and I found there was so much stuff that didn't resonate with me, and that was part of the reason that caused me to run away. I always felt there was so much hypocrisy in religion and things like that. And then all of a sudden, while I'm pursuing this thing to spread love around the world, I have this accident and I get to experience God, if you like, for myself. And that was immensely powerful because, I mean, I don't know that there's any way you can explain it to somebody that hasn't gone through it. But when you do that, it just gave me the strength to like, they clearly said, this is going to work and you're supposed to do this. I guess that's a huge part of this, is the faith, because you don't necessarily know how the numbers are all going to stack up. But I can tell you one thing that I do know about the numbers is that if enough people around the world decide that they like the concept of this and look at it logically and say, okay, well, if I was going to donate money to some cause or charity or thing for a tax benefit or for a, CSR initiative or something like that, I mean, why not give it to something that has a chance of something really, really incredible happening afterwards? It's almost like you're buying a little lottery ticket, right? You get to do your good thing, help people out there, and get this little lottery ticket of receiving this constant stream of love from all these people around the world that are sending you love on the daily. Like that to me, it feels to me like something that is worth having a shot at. And if enough people see that, the numbers simply work on the basis that if the love did nothing, we're still going to have a great new way of empowering these people in poverty. Because remember, we're not just helping them with a handout here now, we're employing them with meaningful employment. I mean, they have the ability to maybe help someone heal on the other side of the world, or maybe help a business in a country that they've never even thought they'd have any touch point or ever visit, and they might be able to help a company grow on the other side of the world. Like, that's really empowering. That's going to break them free of the poverty mindset if we can pull this off. And I think that that's something that's worth being a part of. So we get enough people to want to give this a go, we're going to find out if the love works. But the worst case scenario is it's going to be a lot of fun, and we're going to really change some people's lives in a way that nobody else has done before. To me, that feels like there's no downside to this.
Well, and with that, I think we have a perfect closure to the show. So for somebody now, Aiden, who wants to get involved, where should they go?
You can visit our website as www.theworldsgreatestexperiment.com. And our socials are just getting started, as we're at the World's Greatest Experiment as well. And yeah, feel free to reach out and get in touch, and we'd love to answer any further questions that your listeners might have.
I appreciate that very much. Well, thank you so much for being on the show and sharing your passion and your really desire to create something that hasn't been done before. It certainly shines through loud and clear.
Thank you so much.
And with that, that's it for us for today. So the message of today, I want to reiterate, you don't always have to be clear, especially when you combine spirituality with a strategy, how that exactly unfolds, that a really large component of this is surrender and trust that the messages that you are receiving or the intuition that you're following is coming with a lot of divine guidance. And then sometimes just stepping into it, the second step gets revealed after the first step, and then the next step after the next step. You don't always have to know the way. But I commend Aiden for being so brave and just taking these steps without having any clue where this is going. All right, so share this episode with somebody who may need a tax write-off. We don't say no to anybody. And with maybe a person who needs a little bit of love today, or hear about something inspiring. And thank you so much. And with that, I say goodbye for now.
So appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for listening to the entire episode. Please subscribe to the podcast, give us a 5-star review, a comment, and share this episode with one more person so that you can help us help more people. Thank you again. Until next time. Goodbye.